Wow. Awesome. Great to be here with you. There's a huge opportunity in our workplaces. We know it, and it is often expressed as a number. 60, 70, 80% of our workforces are disengaged at work. Think about what that number represents. That 60 to 70 to 80% of the people who come to work for us, people we are already paying for, are there, and we just simply need to understand how to unlock that energy. And we could potentially take organizations to an order of magnitude more performance than what we're seeing today. I'm going to offer up later that you should be running experiments inside of your organization to tap into that power. I'm going to give you a little peek into our experiment by showing you a video of our company. Most organizations don't really spend much time thinking about their culture. Most organizations operate in chaos. Everyone wants to work on something that's bigger than themselves. I did. I started out in an industry that I was very excited about. Very quickly, I hit a trough of disillusionment. And by 1997, when I was promoted to vice president of product development, I wanted out. I wanted to get as far away from this industry as I could. And then in that moment, I decided to change the industry. And that's the story that I've captured in this book. People are coming from all over the planet to come visit this space that's in the basement of a parking structure in downtown Ann Arbor, Michigan. And they're coming for a reason. They're coming to see something. What most people are looking for is some lessons around what it takes to build an intentionally joyful culture. Imagine half of my team had joy and the other half didn't. Which half would you want working on your project? We had so many requests for these tours, we realized it was time to share this story with the world in a different way. And that's how the book came to be. The space is flexible. We work two to a computer. We assign these pairs. We switch them every 5 working days. The human energy that results from this kind of organization, you can actually feel the joy when you're in the room. My name is Richard Sheridan, and I'm the author of Joy, Inc. So to write a business book and put the words joy and love on the cover is kind of a risky proposition. And people have asked me as I've gone around the world and speaking about the business value of joy, Rich, where does the joy come from for you? Why did you choose the word joy? And at first I thought back to a 13-year-old version of myself, a kid in 1971 who typed in a 2-line program into a computer, and it came back on a roll of paper, because that's the way computers worked in 1971, and it clacked out the words, "Hi, Rich," because that's what I told it to do. And I was hooked. By 1971, as a 13-year-old, I knew what I was going to do the rest of my days. I wanted to be in the software industry. My kids are still astounded to this day that I decided on my career when I was just 13 years old. But as I dug down deeper, I realized there was a deeper story for me than that. And I had to go back a couple of more years to when I was 10. My parents had bought a piece of furniture, a shelving unit that my mom wanted in the living room, something like you would get from IKEA today. And it was out in the garage in a cardboard box, and they went out to dinner and a movie, and I decided to build that shelving unit for my mom. I knew she would be delighted, so I went out there, and over the next couple of hours, took out the 50 pieces of wood and the 200 little nuts, bolts, and screws, and I put that thing together, and I was so proud of myself. And then I realized, oh no, I built it in the garage. Mom wants it in the living room. So for the next hour, I inched that thing out of the garage and down the sidewalk and into the house, and I pushed it right into the living room, right where Mom wanted it. I set up the stereo and my dad's books and my mom's little knickknacks. And when they walked in the door, My mom was so delighted, she cried. Joy. What I realize is that whatever we do in our lives, joy is derived from serving others. Joy is derived from the work of our hearts, our hands, and our minds, and its ability to deliver delight to the world with what we've done. And that's what I hoped to do in my career with computers. But I will tell you that very quickly after graduating from the University of Michigan with a couple of degrees in computer science and computer engineering, my life turned from joy to fear. The IT industry, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with, is an industry of death march culture. Working around the clock 24/7, we're almost legendary for programmers coming to work with sleeping bags and spending time away from family and missing important family celebrations. And the trouble is that so much of our lives are lived in chaos. If you're in the software industry like I am, you understand chaos. Chaos is the phones ringing off the hook with problems, emergencies every single day. And yet our processes are the equivalent of flicking lit cigarette butts everywhere while carrying sloshing gas cans. And we wonder why there are fires everywhere. It's because we're setting them with the processes that we use. And usually there's a big event, negative events, when you have chaos in your organization. Our industry is famous for these kind of negative events. The one I talk about in the book is a trading company in New York City called Knight Capital Group. And a tired programmer made a mistake, and in the next 45 minutes, their trading software traded $7 billion worth of securities it wasn't supposed to, costing Knight Capital Group $400 million and ultimately the company. Are you with me? Would that be considered a negative event in your organization? You know, there's an old saying, to err is human and to really foul things up requires a computer. And usually we have this big bureaucracy lever that we pull, right? If we're operating in chaos, it's the land of never getting anything done. But when we have negative events, we implement procedure manuals and processes and meetings and stage gates, and we go from the land of never getting anything done to the land of never getting anything started. And then typically in my industry, there's this saddest story of all. The story where one day the boss comes in and says, oh, by the way, Rich, that project you've been working on for the last 3 years, we've canceled it. Buried it out in the backyard. No one will ever see it. Projects that never see the light of day cause deep disillusionment. Probably one of the largest business project failures in the history of mankind occurred in my industry, where 10,000 people were assembled for 5 years to create a product that never saw the light of day. You all know what it is, Windows Vista. As soon as it finished, the marketing team at Microsoft said, here's a coupon. You can downgrade your new computer to XP. We were just kidding. And you think, what effect did that have on the people's lives who had worked for 5 years in a Microsoft type of culture just to have their work set aside and replaced by a newer version of the operating system? This was the life I was leading. This was the life that caused me to think, maybe I don't want to be here anymore. Maybe I want to escape this industry entirely. But I was left with a goal inside of me, and that was there a better way? Was there a better way to organize a company, a department, a business? Was there a better way to organize a process? And my search led me to authors and books. And around about the year 2000, as I was climbing up a wonderful career ladder, one that the world said you were incredibly successful, while in here I was dying, I read a book by a guy named Kent Beck called Extreme Programming Explained. It's kind of a funny name for it. This is sort of, for most people who don't know programming, sounds like programmers jumping off of cliffs with bungee cords or skateboarding around parks, but this was just a fundamentally different way to organize a software team, and I was intrigued. Then I saw a video on an industrial design firm in California called IDEO. And I had a click moment. That moment where everything snaps into place and all this preparation that I've been going through suddenly made sense to me. And I decided to change everything about how software was designed and built. And that's what I want to walk with you today through as I talk about what goes on inside of my company. And the question I want to contemplate with you as we go through these slides is, does joy matter? Can you see it? Can you feel it? Can you touch it? And does it in fact produce business value and business results? Because if it doesn't really matter. And I will tell you, a lot of people come to see it. A lot of people come from all over the world. We had almost 4,000 people come through our doors last year alone just to walk around and see this tiny little company, to see what it is we've discovered. And the first thing they see is, well, one of those horrible open office environments you've heard about. Fast Company magazine describes these open office environments as an idea born in the mind of Satan in the deepest caverns of hell. They have psychologists that prove these open environments don't work. And yet, somehow it works for us. And when these articles come out, everybody who knows me sends me copies and they say, Rich, how come the open office works for you and it doesn't work seemingly anywhere else? And I tell them it's very simple. We didn't build an open and collaborative office. We built an open and collaborative culture. Our workspace is a reflection of the culture we built. A lot of times we get that equation backwards, don't we? We think simply by changing the physical space will change human behaviors. No, we have to work on them at the same time. We have to change the behaviors while we're changing the physical space. Our environment is noisy, which surprises most people in my industry. Everybody thinks that software development has to be done in library quiet. But ours is a noisy environment. We have very few rules at Menlo, but one of the most serious ones is you cannot wear earbuds listening to music while you're working. We want people to overhear the ideas of others. There is serendipity inside of this noise, and we want that serendipity to feed the creativity of our team. I will tell you, a lot of organizations invite me into their companies. They show me where their teams work, and they want to show me their tour. And we walk through their spaces, and the visit goes something like this. Rich, this is where our technical team works. They're thinking really deep thoughts right now. And we tiptoe past the sea of darkened cubicles, and everyone has their backs to the doors, and they're silently clicking away on keyboards, and they have earbuds in their ears, so I'm not sure why we're even whispering. And we get to the corner office, and the executive closes the door and says, now the first thing I want to talk to you about, Rich, is our communication challenges inside of our company. Shocking that there might be communication challenges. In our world, we don't have a hierarchy. We don't have reporting relationships. We have a team. And you actually see the teamwork as the team forms a space to sit shoulder to shoulder to shoulder to shoulder next to one another all day long. The space itself is flexible and visual. There's pull-downs from the ceiling with electrical and network. The lightweight aluminum tables scream to the team, change me if you want to. There are no rules. There is no permission to ask. The space changes in small ways every single day. Sometimes it changes in big ways, particularly when I'm away. In fact, the last time I went on a trip, I was sitting around this pillar right here because I'm out in the room with everyone else as the CEO of the company. Then they moved me all the way to this close to the front door. One more move of that magnitude, I'll be on the other side of the glass. But the team is in charge of the space, and for all the years we've been in business, they have chosen to push the tables together. They want to sit close to one another. They want to sit shoulder to shoulder. They want to sit front to front. They want to be near one another. And a lot of people wonder, does this only work for extroverted engineers? Rich, have you found like the 10 extroverted engineers on the planet and they all work for Menlo? But in fact, what we've discovered is that it's not that introverts prefer library quiet. It's that they prefer fewer, safer, deeper relationships. And they get that in our company. One of the books I read along the way was Peter Senge's book, The Fifth Discipline, on the art and practice of building a learning organization. And we certainly have done that. But books are just a small part of our learning. We do have books everywhere, but it's more the way we organize the team that promotes the learning. You see, we connected our team intellectually. We connected them emotionally. We connected them physically. 2 people sit at one computer all day long working on the same task at the same time. Those pairs are assigned, and we switch them every 5 working days. That simple construct underlies everything we do at Menlo. How knowledge is shared, how teamwork is created, how creativity is pushed forward. 2 people, 1 computer, working on the same task at the same time. We'll have time for questions afterwards. You can ask me about this. And then we discovered one of the biggest challenges inside of the technical industry, and that is how we communicate with one another. I love this quote from John Naisbitt in Megatrends. What's amazing to me about this quote is he wrote it in 1982. And he's telling us that in the century we're in right now, that the most exciting breakthroughs will not occur because of technology, but because of an expanding concept of what it means to be human. I would declare that's why we're gathered together here these 2 days, is to look deeper into our humanity, not into our technology. I was sitting at a very popular restaurant, a delicatessen in Ann Arbor, one Saturday morning having a coffee and a bagel, and I watched young parents next to me. And the entire time the parents were there with their young children, they were like this. Not a single word was shared with their children. And I will tell you, having raised 3 daughters, all I wanted to do was grab those young parents and say, spend time with your children. We run a risk these days, don't we, that our technology is not bringing us together, it's pushing us apart. We need to figure out this equation for how do we communicate. And in the technology arena, this is even more difficult because there's different tribes in technology, aren't there? There's the technical tribe like me, who often speaks dolphin speak to the rest of the world. We make funny sounds that sound intelligent, but no one understands what we're saying. There's a business tribe that pays us to do good work, but they don't necessarily know what it is we're being asked to do, and they don't understand how we can chart progress so that they actually understand what's going on. And then there's a lost tribe of technology. I will talk about them in a little bit. So hang on for that one. So the first type of conversation we wanted to change was inside the room. We wanted to change how we communicated with each other. When we communicate inside of Menlo, because we're all in one big open room, we don't use electronics. We use what we like to call high-speed voice technology. The hardware was pre-installed at birth. It includes vocal cords and tympanic membranes and auditory nerve stimulation of the brain, and it's supplemented by body language and eyebrows and tonal inflection. In fact, if we want to call an all-company meeting at Menlo, We do it quite simply. I'm going to have you practice it with me. I'm going to say, hey, Menlo, and you're going to yell back at me, hey, Rich. Hey, Menlo. And the whole place goes quiet, and we are now in an all-company meeting. No one moved. How many of you have meetings where you work? Does anyone have meetings where you work? Meetings, yes. You have meetings? Yeah, we hate meetings. We think they're mind-numbing, spirit-sucking, energy-draining devices of management. So we pretty much have eliminated them. The ones we do have, we keep very short. So, hey, Menlo, hey, Rich, we're in a meeting. We transaction the business of the meeting. I say thank you, and everyone goes back to work. Our typical all-company meetings last about 7 to 10 seconds. We do have one meeting a day. It's called by a dartboard on the wall. The dartboard has an alarm clock. Why a dartboard needs an alarm clock, we have no idea. But it was programmable, so we programmed it. We're programmers after all. So every morning at 10 o'clock, bong, 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 and everyone stands and gathers in a circle. Everyone comes to the meeting, even Fern the dog. And we pass around the iconic symbol of Menlo, the two-horned plastic Viking helmet. Why do we like the plastic Viking helmet to control our meetings? It's actually quite practical. We work in pairs, so we report out in pairs. Each pair takes the token, talks about what they're working on, what they're trying to accomplish next, and where they might need help. The token passes around the meeting from pair to pair, and it moves around the 60 or 70 people who may be at the meeting, and then we finally set the token down and go back to work. And that 70-person meeting with everyone having a chance to report out takes 13 minutes. I defy most organizations to begin a meeting of 70 people in 13 minutes, let alone call it, start it, hold it, give everyone a chance to report out, finish it, and get back to work. So remember, we hate meetings, so we hold them standing up. Then we knew we had to change the conversations with our customers. See, building technology, building software for a living is, well, it's kind of a theoretical activity, isn't it? You can describe to me what software you want built, and we can go away with what we believe is a clear understanding to build it, but we might get off track. You describe something that's in your head, I hear something different, we begin building it, we get off track. This is the biggest problem in software development. So what we do every 5 days is get together with our customers. We get together with them in a meeting we call a show and tell. Yes, it is a meeting. But what we do is we change the roles of the meeting. We put our customer front and center. We have our customer with the software that we're building projected on the screen, and the customer shows us the work we did the previous 5 days. We don't show it to them. So we change the roles completely, while the team that did the work watches the customer's response to all the work. Because sometimes the customer looks at what we did and they said, oh, I'm sorry, is that what you thought I meant? That's not what I meant at all. And our answer is great. We worked on something for 2 hours, and less than 5 days later, we found out we did it incorrectly. Now we have a chance to fix it. We have a make mistakes faster mentality at Menlo. It's not that we prefer making mistakes, but if we are going to make mistakes, and we know we are, we're human, we prefer to make them quickly, keep them small, and correct them soon. And that's what happens in the show and tell meetings that we have with our clients every week. And then we let the team feel the response of our customers. No status reports going back and forth, no hard to interpret emails. We want the feeling of that human emotion in these meetings. And then we go into a planning effort with our customers, and this is where things get really strange with us. You see, even though we're a software company, we plan with paper. I'll just give you an example of this here. I brought one with me. All of our planning artifacts are handwritten down on index cards. We like these little pieces of paper. You can't imagine just me rubbing my thumbs over this paper like this, how many neurons I'm lighting up in your brain. We are visual, tactile creatures, and we like to plan with paper. We estimate in hours how long things will take, and then we fold the card to the size of the estimates. An 8-hour card is half as big as 16. Sometimes for slightly less sophisticated audiences, I have to show one more example of what a 4-hour card looks like, and now you can see the spatial relationship between our activities. And then our customer comes in and plans with us, and they decide what fits within their budget by picking up these little folded pieces of paper and laying them down on their planning sheets. And each one of these sheets that you see represented on this planning table shows you what fits and what doesn't. This is a very collaborative exercise. And I will tell you that people regularly challenge me on this. They say, Rich, you're a software company. Why do you use paper? And I tell them it's very simple. We choose tools we believe work better for humans. This is a very collaborative exercise, and these tools are very easy to teach. In fact, as I see a lot of you are taking notes, I'm going to teach you our project management system. This is the add function. This is delete. You have now learned our project management system. Now, we've already established you have meetings. We have a saying in the United States. I don't know how well it translates here, but a lot of times at the end of a meeting, the boss will say something like, so we are all on the same page, right? Have you ever heard that phrase? Anybody ever heard that phrase? We're all on the same page? Well, ask an annoying question if you ever hear that stated at a meeting. Say, yeah, I'm okay being on the same page with you, boss, but which page are we talking about? The whiteboard, the flip chart, the notebook, the email that comes out after the meeting? I'm okay being on the same page. You just got to talk about which page we're talking about. At Menlo, when we say we're all on the same page, we are literally all on the same page. And then if you want to be even more annoying at that meeting, you can say, what did we decide not to do? Well, we decided not to do everything we didn't decide to do. Oh, that's clear. But in our system, the things we decided to do fit on the planning sheets. The things we decided not to do are still on the table, entirely unambiguous. We think that filtering out ambiguity in a system like this is very important to maintain the human energy that keeps a team moving forward. Our customers get very involved in this process. It's a very collaborative process. You can work side by side with us as they make decisions, but the tools aren't interfering with the work. All supported by simple, handwritten artifacts. People often ask us, why don't you just type them in and then print them out? We believe it is cognitively impossible to not read something you wrote by hand. Whereas if you use cut and paste and drag and drop and so on of electronics, it may be that no one actually read the documents. Bureaucracy is filled with documents that are filled big 3-ring binders and often have project management police forces overseeing them, like project management offices, and no one, not even the people who originated the documents, read them. We want to make sure all of the documents are read. We also do it on small index cards because we want to make sure, well, it's like that old story. I was going to write you a short letter, but I didn't have time, so I wrote you a long one. By keeping the piece of paper small, it forces you to be clear and concise and to the point. We take all these little folded pieces of paper, unfold them, and put them up on the wall for all to see. And in this way, we've transparently declared what work is being done and, in fact, by whom. Each one of these little swim lanes represents 2 people assigned to work together in our pairs for a 5-day effort. The cards are placed next to the day we expect them to complete based on the estimates that were on those cards. The yarn indicates where we are in the week. So in this particular project, we've already completed the first of 4 days. The 5th day is still being worked on. And then the color-coded sticky dots you see in the upper right-hand corners tell the story of each individual card. Each card has a history to it. A yellow dot says that's what we're working on right now. We work on one thing at a time and we work on it till it's done. No more of multitasking and trying to get 5 things done at the same time. We work on one thing at a time and we work on it till it's done. So a yellow dot goes on a card when we begin working on the card together. When we think we're done, we put an orange dot on a card. How many of you ever worked with programmers in your life or been a programmer at some time or another? Yes, you probably know this then, that programmers have many different words for done, don't they? You've heard programmers say things like, because I used to say this as a programmer, well, it's done, but it's not done. Or it's ready, but it's not finished. Well, it's finished, but it's not complete. Well, it's complete, but it's not ready. You know, and on and on and on it goes. Well, in our world, our programmers can only self-declare they think they're done. And then QA, our quality assurance team, comes around immediately and checks their work. And if QA gives you a thumbs up, you get a green dot. That's an endorphin rush for the programmers. Yay, we're done. If QA doesn't like what they see, you get a red dot. That's endorphin rush for the testing team. Yay, we broke it. Have you ever worked with QA people? Anybody ever worked, or anybody been a QA person? You know, if you ever have a QA person in the room, you can always ask them, when you find something wrong and you go back to the programmers and ask them and say, hey, I was testing the software you wrote and it isn't behaving right. Does anyone know what the programmer is likely to say in that moment? It worked on my machine. And I arm QA people with a simple response: grab their machine and ship it to the customer. They will never say that again. And the thing about QA people that we need to honor is that QA people prefer to break software before it ships. They want to break it when it's still in the room because they take it personally when it breaks out in the world, and we want that attitude on all of our teams. And now I want to talk about that lost tribe of technology. You know about lost tribes. You read about them every once in a while in the press, that some anthropologists have been hacking their way through the jungle of the Amazon, and then they find this tribe of people that have never had made human contact with outside civilization. We have those in our industry. We call them users. In fact, what we do is we call them stupid users, don't we? Then we write dummies books for those poor stupid users. Right? This is the most miraculous thing about our industry, is that we almost for an entire history of our industry have called the people we serve stupid. What other industry can get away with this? And remember, we are the industry that gave you, if you want to shut down your computer, please press the start button. Well, that's intuitive, isn't it? Or if you don't remember that, well, how about Control-Alt-Delete? That's simple, isn't it? Think how many ways you are tortured every single day by technology. In fact, we get most people in our industry, the people we serve, to self-declare, oh, you know me, I'm just a stupid user. I don't understand this technology. No, it doesn't have to be that way. But in order to overcome this, we needed a different approach. And at Menlo, we ended up calling it high-tech anthropology. High-tech anthropology. We have people on our team who are anthropologists. They go out into the world and they study people in their native environment. And they discover how the software needs to work. They're not told by the users. They're not surveying people to say what you want it to do. They go out and, using discovery and observation, learn from the people who are in fact unconsciously competent at what they do all day long. And we make sure we understand their world, we understand their vocabulary, their work habits, their day-to-day goals as human beings. And we bring all of that information back to Menlo, and in this empathy-oriented sort of way, bring this knowledge back in, create their own paper-based artifacts. This tool here is a device we call a persona map. Each one of these personas represents a different type of user we might serve with the piece of software we're developing. We work with our clients to prioritize these types of users, one versus another. Who knew that you could get to user-centered design by putting a story of the user you're trying to serve in the center of one of your most prominent design artifacts? But this is what we do. And from this point forward, we never talk about the user anymore. We never talk about what I think the software should work like. We talk about Gary. We give the persona a name, and then we carry that name forward from that point forward. Every new feature we're going to add, if Gary is in the middle, we'll say, how is that feature going to work for Gary? Now, it may be that it's serving Jimmy or Bill. Well, if we do that, we have to just make sure we add that feature in a way that doesn't interfere with Gary's use, because Gary is primary. And this drives all of our decision-making process. Our anthropologists synthesize all of this information. They love Post-it notes from 3M Corporation. I think we're one of 3M's favorite customers. There's a lot of synthesis going on here, because the first rule for the anthropologist is to dive into the cloud of ambiguity, to try and understand and make sense of all the data they're getting, and eventually bring that back down to a simple interface. Simple is never easy, is it? The best part of design is when things work the way they're intended, we never notice. The most beautiful designs are the ones that have just disappeared from our radar screen because they work exactly the way we expect them to. That never happens by accident. Now I want to get back to my opening statements about how do we engage the people who work for us? How do we change the equation inside of our companies? How do we capture that human energy that's part of the 60 or 70 or 80% of the people who come work for us who are disengaged at work? And I know what happens at a conference like this. It's hard for all of you to take 2 days out of your work life, come to a conference like this, listen to a lot of speakers, perhaps pick up some new ideas, new books, build new relationships with other people. And then you go back to the office, don't you? And you start talking to someone at your office, say, I have this great idea. And they look at you and they're busy too, and they say, oh, that will never work here. Right? Doesn't that happen? You know? And right there, right then and there, the idea dies, doesn't it? Just in that simple exchange, the idea dies. You have emails to answer, you have meetings to go to, and all of the lessons of a conference like this are washed away in a simple, I'm sorry, that's not us. That's not the way we work here. That won't work here. We've already tried that once. Well, I want to arm you with one simple phrase that I hope you carry not only through the rest of the 2 days here, but back to your offices when you go back to work. And the simple phrase is this: shrug your shoulders and say, I know, but let's run the experiment. Let's try something and see what happens. Let's not defeat it before we try it. Let's see what happens. So I want to tell you a story of how this played out at my company. 9 years ago, Tracy had a baby. The baby's name was Maggie. Tracy was off on maternity leave for a few months. She was ready to come back to work. But the daycare they planned to use was full. Grandparents lived too far away to help. Tracy didn't know what to do. She came to me, she said, Rich, I'm ready to come back to work. And I said, awesome, we can't wait to have you back. When can you be here? And she described the challenges she faced. And I will tell you, in that moment, there were two voices on my shoulders. You know this, there's the bright voice and the dark voice having an argument in my brain, right? Now, Tracy never heard this argument because it was a silent conflict inside my head. The dark voice said, don't you dare say what you're about to say. HR will kill you. The lawyers will freak out. The insurance policies will go through the roof. The bright voice said, you're an entrepreneur. It's your company. You can do whatever you want. You don't even have an HR department. So I looked at Tracy and I said, bring her in. She looked at me. She said, what do you mean? I said, bring her into work. She said, all day? I said, sure. She said, every day? I said, why not? And then she started resisting. She said, Rich, what happens if she fusses? What happens if she makes a big disruption? What happens if everybody, right? This is the same thing, right? That won't work here. And I said, Tracy, you're the mom. I trust you. You'll do the right thing. We'll work it out together. Let's run the experiment. Now, isn't she adorable? Funny thing is, that's not little Maggie. That's Ellie. That's Menlo baby number 8. Menlo baby number 13 just graduated, little Oliver. Menlo baby number 14 is due to arrive any day now. This has been a wonderful experiment for us. This is not daycare, by the way. The baby is with the parent all day long. Now, let me assure you, when we run experiments, some things are going to happen that we don't expect. Maggie learned to pair program. Maggie went to design meetings. We found out that our customers behave better when you bring a baby to the meeting. It's awesome. They're part of the marketing team. And both the moms and the dads get to enjoy seeing the firsts that come with their children. This is Henry learning to manage. How's it going? What you working on? And then our customers started behaving differently too. This gentleman called up to bring his Great Dane into a meeting with us. And he said, I know you guys like dogs. Can I bring my dog in? And I thought, what a great opportunity to have your customers begin participating in your culture. Now, it's a lot of fun at Menlo. We have a lot of human energy in the room, but there is no substitute in our industry for the rigor and discipline of actually producing great software. But it's that human energy that feeds all of it that is so important. Because ultimately what we wanted to do was build a learning organization, because in our industry, if you are not learning every minute of every day, you are falling behind. Heck, even if you are learning every minute of every day, you're falling behind. But as Peter Senge tells us, in the long run, the only sustainable source of competitive advantage in our organizations is to learn faster than our competition. I wanted joy. I wanted to deliver that kind of delight that I delivered to my mother when I was 10. I wanted the work of our hearts, our hands, and our minds to get out into the world and delight people, so much so that they say, I love the software you guys have created. You make my life better because of it. I wanted to give my team the best possible chance to do that, and the way we did it is to reach into that 60, 70, 80% of disengagement and put that part of our organization to work. I'm delighted to be here with you today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you very much.